What's up, everybody? It's Jordan, and welcome to the Sports Dude Hines Show. Today is October 29th, Halloween weekend, and joining me today is Mike on the Mike Sports. How you doing today, Mike?
I am doing great. Happy Halloween, everyone. Or early Halloween. 2 days, right?
Yeah, clearly, if you haven't noticed by now, we're on costume. It's very difficult for me right now. I'm a rather large individual, and with this mask over me, I'm going to need my inhaler or something. It's going to be a long, long day. I'm already sweating a ton. Obviously, you have your costume on and everything, and, we'll just go ahead and get right into it. Yesterday, the Green Bay Packers took on the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals were undefeated. The Packers only had one loss heading in. And the Packers surprisingly defeated the Arizona Cardinals, the last unbeaten team in the league. The Packers are now the first team in the NFC. So what were your kind of thoughts on this game and everything like that?
I expected it to be a good game, and I thought that the Packers losing those wide receivers right before the game was going to hurt them more than it did. Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers came out with the game plan, and they executed it to almost perfection of keeping this ball out of the Arizona offense's hands. And they did it perfectly, man. And they really exposed that hole that was probably left by J.J. Watt on that D-line and the run stop. A lot of people don't realize, J.J. Watt isn't going to be the sack machine that he was before. But when it comes to stopping the run, he is very heavily involved for that Arizona defensive line and a big part of that defense, especially when he bumps inside and plays a little bit of D tackle. And we saw them be hurt by that. And a little bit of a banged up Zaven Collins might have hurt as well. We saw him get hurt during the game. Might have been the reasoning that they could not stop the run at all in the first half of the game, and the Packers abused it. And bravo to them. Perfect game plan, and they executed it perfectly.
Yeah, that mask was very, very short-lived. That was maybe 2 minutes. That was way harder than I thought it was going to be. So that mask was basically for nothing. I said the whole week, try to wear a costume. I've been planning that the whole week. I maybe got a minute and a half in. But, with the Packers and the Cardinals, this was just – it really proves the Packers are for real. I was kind of hesitant towards them because, obviously that fluke loss to the Saints. They should have lost to the Bengals a couple weeks ago. There have been times they've played great. At times they've kind of played lower to the competition. But without Devontae Adams, without Robert Tonyan for the majority of the second half, you hold this, Arizona Cardinals team, who's one of the best offenses and has one of the best defenses in the league. You pretty much could do whatever you want against Arizona. It was your game pretty much the majority of the game. It seemed like they had control the most of the game. And to me, when you scored 24 points against this Arizona defense without Devontae Adams, like I mentioned, this is very impressive. You had other guys out as well, like Lazard. And then the Green Bay defense stepped up. I don't even believe their, defense coordinator was able to coach this game because, he had a coronavirus, contact or something like that. It is just crazy to me because, when you look at the Cardinals, they had some games, they really got lucky. Let's say the Minnesota game, Minnesota missed a kick. If they make that kick, they're not undefeated. They humiliate the Rams, which was very surprising. They humiliate the Browns without Arizona did not even have their head coach in that game, which that was a very, very impressive win. To me, I felt like, the Browns are good. The Rams are one of the best teams in the league, but you wanted to see one more game to truly see if the Cardinals were the best team in the league or not. You see this game. The Packers, top 3 wide receivers out. You had your defensive coordinator out. You're still able to pull off a very impressive victory against, when it comes to record standpoints, the best team in the league. I don't know what more you want from the Packers right now. If you're a Packers fan, this is clearly a top 3 team at worst right now. It is crazy. They have their longest winning streak in the league. They're 7-1. Aaron Rodgers is playing like he did last year. At times, he looks even better. Take away that Saints game. This Packers team is for real. And right now, it's very interesting because when you look at the NFC teams, the top ones come to mind are the Cardinals, Rams, Buccaneers, and Packers. You can make a case the Packers might be the best out of those 4 teams.
Oh, 100%. They were my Super Bowl pick in the offseason this year, just because I feel like there was going to be a different vibe coming into it if Rodgers did get out on the field, and thank God he did, right? Because now we're starting to see it a little bit. There's a different mojo there. And Tony Tucker's talked about it too a little bit. He's almost like it's not carefree football, but they definitely don't feel as pressured to perform it each week. And you could tell they're having a lot more fun, especially Aaron Rodgers and the offense and the receivers and all that. They're all having a lot more fun than in previous years. And sometimes that's what you need to do. And that's what's going to work out. And I think a lot of that was the key to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' success last year. Something to point out for the Cardinals, though, and for Cardinals fans not to be too worried about the loss. For one, you were one play away from winning still, despite Kyler playing his worst game of the year, in my opinion. And then for two, this short week game against the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football is extremely tough on a team that does not have like a ton of successful players, guys that have dealt with a bunch of success before. They are excited for this game. This was a big game to them. Aaron Rodgers has been in this scenario 20 times in his career already, while a lot of guys in the Arizona Cardinals offense, this is their first or second time dealing with a game like this. And we saw mistake after mistake after mistake, especially in the first half. That interception that gave them the ball there on the goal line, it turns into one of those Randall Cobb touchdowns. Like that's just a mistake by Kyler, overthrowing a screen pass that's easy to make. All you got to do is just dump it off to him. Rondale Moore on the punt return, going and trying to touch the ball and then pulling his hands away at the last second. You got to make that decision before the last second, my guy. Either you're going to go and catch it or you're not going to catch it. Pick one and live or die with it. And he didn't, and that gave them 3 points. I think they got a field goal on that drive. So those kind of little mistakes and stuff happen a lot on these kind of inexperienced teams. They do have a lot of veterans on the team, but not in the positions to be the key role players in this game, other than DeAndre Hopkins, who was hurt as well most of the game. So painful.
I don't really get that Rondale Moore, punt return. As close as it was, you're saying you don't have, you didn't touch the ball. To me, I would still just go run up and, recover that ball, even if you did, touch it, which, he clearly did. I don't get why, it's one of those situations where, oh, I didn't do it. You did it. Why are you not, admitting to your mistake? That's costing your team. You take away that field goal. I mean, it's a 21-21 game right then. You could be kicking a field goal instead of A.J. Green not knowing what he's doing, one of the last plays of the game.
Yep.
I mean, that's another thing. A.J. Green, you mentioned, the Arizona Cardinals do not have as much experienced team opposed to the Packers. J.J. Watt's probably out for the year. A.J. Green, he's probably, A.J. Green and J.J. Watt were both drafted in 2011. So they're probably the longest, tenured Arizona players who've been in the league the longest. A.J. Green, I mean, a play like yesterday was reasons like that was why I was not really that upset when A.J. Green left the Bengals, despite him being one of the best single players of all time. It was just the point where he was rooting his legacy with Cincinnati last season, and plays like that last night happened way, 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 way more than people thought it did last year with the Bengals when Joe Burrow was his quarterback. I feel like it might have been different if you had like Ryan Finley or something like that when it's a meaningless game and, when Burrow was hurt. But when Joe Burrow is your quarterback, and I mean, I saw a clip earlier today, like he didn't even try for a ball. He didn't try for that ball last night. He's towards the end of his career, and the Cardinals, heading into the season, lots of people thought they were sleepers for the Super Bowl. And I didn't really get that, because to me, J.J. Watt is not what he used to be because he's always hurt. And A.J. Green's not what he used to be because he's always hurt. I'm surprised he hasn't missed more games than he has already. But, this Cardinals team, if they can get J.J. Watt back and if they can just kind of control their destiny, win games that they need to, I mean, they are still first place in the hardest division when healthy in the NFL and the NFC West. I mean, they're still over the Rams, which is very impressive because the Rams are one of the best teams in the league. This Cardinals team, it's no need to panic right now, but it's very – they should have won that game, but, they should have lost the Vikings game, so it kind of cancels out. But if you're 7-1 right now, you're the Cardinals fan, you still had to be very excited despite the loss yesterday. I mean, you're one of the best teams in the league. Nobody really expected this. You're a Super Bowl contender. Nobody expected this. Kyler Murray's playing like an MVP candidate. And as it goes for the Packers, like I said, the longest winning streak in the NFL. Rodgers is playing phenomenal. And it's kind of surprising me a little bit with the Packers because I didn't think they were going to be as good compared to last season, because when you look at it, they lost Corey Linsley, the best center in the league last season, to your Chargers and everything. To me, that was horrible. The Packers 100% should have re-signed Linsley instead of re-signing Aaron Jones, because obviously everybody knows running back is the easiest position to replace in the NFL. And you bring in the center from Ohio State. I just did not, Josh Myers. I just did not think they were going to be as good as last season. They're playing just as good, maybe even better compared to last season. And, some people thought the Cardinals were the best team in the league, and with the Packers beating them and being the first place seed in the NFC, it's certainly debatable if the Packers are the best team in the league or not. As of like 2 weeks ago, to me, I know this was a very underrated pick. I actually kind of said the Cowboys. I know Cowboys fans are so annoying, and the Cowboys fans, they let you down every single. Cowboys always let you down every single year. They always underachieve. But if you were to tell me the Cowboys against the Cardinals, I'm probably going to take the Cowboys. If you tell me now the Cowboys against the Packers, that's where it gets interesting right now, because 90% of the time when you win a game, it's because you have the better quarterback. I'm obviously going to take Aaron Rodgers over Dak Prescott. Even though Dak Prescott's playing out of his mind right now, it's very hard for me to take Dak Prescott, who's having one MVP and a half a season, as opposed to Aaron Rodgers, who just won the MVP last year, who's a top 5 quarterback of all time. When healthy, he has the best wide receiver in the league. He has one of the better running backs in the league. Their defense yesterday was phenomenal. And so it's certainly debatable for the Packers. I'm probably going to say, yeah, I feel like I keep on jumping the ship on who's the best team in the league every single week. I'm one of those people overreacting. But it's very impressive because you know what you're going to get from the Packers offense, but you did not expect at all that performance in the defense yesterday. So Week 8, I'm going to say the Packers are the best team in the league.
Yeah, I'm start looking at the Rams and I'm looking at the Bucks. I think I might lean Rams just because they had the head-to-head victory over the Bucks this year. But the Rams did lose to the Arizona Cardinals as well. And that was a little bit of a tough game. Arizona walked into Los Angeles and put a smacking on them. So it's so tough right now at the top of the NFC because you got all these teams that are just taking each other down. Green Bay's beating Arizona. Arizona's beating Los Angeles. Tampa Bay lost to Los Angeles. So it's kind of like a complete mix-up, and the Packers seem to be coming out on top when all the dust is settled, at least until they see either Los Angeles or Tampa Bay and probably lose to them as the way it's going.
And it's interesting with the NFC because, to me, heading into the season, I thought the Rams were the clear best team in the league. And you look at them, after defeating the Buccaneers, it just kind of, helped my case more. And at that point, I feel like most people thought the Rams were the best team in the league. The following week, I think it was, they get humiliated by the Cardinals. And then you start to wonder, are the Cardinals the best team in the league? They didn't really play anybody great. They played the Browns, who, were kind of injured at that time. And then they play the Packers. It's interesting with the NFC because I feel like the NFC is much more intriguing than the AFC. You look at the NFC right now, you have the Packers, who's number 1, and then you have the Buccaneers, Rams, Cardinals. Then you have the AFC, who the Bengals are in first place in the AFC. That is just crazy to me. I had to mention it in there somehow, but
and we aren't like in the first 4 weeks anymore. We are at mid-season. We're about to pass the halfway mark.
5-2, and realistically 6-2, and not trying to be biased, especially because it's a team I hate. Could be 7-2. You look at the Jets, and then you look at the Browns at home with their whole situation with Mayfield being injured. It's a great time to be a Bengal fan. I know you're a Chargers fan. It's a great time to be a Chargers fan. Both these teams are going to be really good. But with the Bengals, you have the Bengals, Bills, Titans. I guess the Ravens in there, but to me, people who have the Ravens ahead of the Bengals right now is just stupid. Makes no sense to me. But those are kind of the top teams in the AFC. If they would have played the NFC, I feel like the NFC would just pretty much beat down all those teams. The NFC has so much more, in-depth teams right now. Look at the Cowboys. I didn't even mention them in that top 4 I just said. The Cowboys can go toe-to-toe with the Bills, the Titans, the Ravens, the Bengals. This NFC is much more intriguing, but this AFC, too, is very, very intriguing as well.
It's good for us. It's good for us Bengals and Chargers fans. It gives us an actual shot at going to the Super Bowl.
Which, that's just crazy to say because, honestly, I really thought the Bengals and the Chargers were one of those teams, this year can maybe get 8, 9, possibly 10 wins. And then the third year with Burrow and Herbert, that's the year, that's the Super Bowl year. That's, kind of like, the quarterbacks now you see, Josh Allen was okay. Then the second year wins a playoff game, goes to the playoffs. Then the third year, and it was last year. It's going to be so much fun to watch those two. And it's interesting because when you think of the, Bengals and Chargers at the trade deadline, you don't really think of them as buyers because, they haven't really been those top teams in their division for quite some time. And you look at, other teams like the Packers and the Cowboys who maybe just need, they might be some of the best teams in the league. I did say the Packers are the best team in the league right now, but they just need one extra step to cement their case even more to becoming the best team in the league and helping them in the long run, especially in the postseason. So, with the trade deadline this Tuesday, it's very interesting. Who are some players to you that you believe that need to be traded ASAP?
And we talk about Odell every single week. Odell's not helping the Browns, and the Browns aren't helping Odell. And we're starting to see both become the case, and it's blaring every week on the field now. Odell's dropping passes, or Case Keenum / Baker Mayfield missing Odell wide open down the field. One of the two seems to be happening. There's not a click there. There hasn't been a click there since the day he went to that team. So it's time to get Odell out of there. Now, to where? Not sure. Every single team needs wide receiver depth. Every single team needs defensive back depth. Speaking of defensive back depth, talking about the Denver Broncos possibly moving on from any of those defensive backs other than Patrick Surtain. They've got Ronald Darby, Bryce Callahan, and Kyle Fuller, and Patrick Surtain, and Joe Moutier. I just don't know how to say his last name. I try my best each time I talk about him, but he's solid as well. So they have 5 corners that can start on the team, and there's only 2 or 3 spots on the field at once. So we could see Kyle Fuller on the move as well. So that's the 2 guys that I'm looking at possibly going. For the Chargers, I want us to acquire a defensive tackle. I just don't know where it's going to come from. I mean, I tried to convince myself the Bears would let go of Akeem Hicks, but more and more I think about it, like why would they do that unless they really don't want to let his contract expire and they really do want to ship him off. But he's kind of like a Bears player, man. He's a franchise player for them. I don't know if they just wait out his contract and try and re-sign him, and if they don't, kind of just shoulder shrug, because we would offer a 6th-round pick for him or something, or a 5th-round pick.
You mentioned Beckham. That was pretty much the main reason why I made this a topic. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. is the most overrated receiver in the league, and I'm going to actually apologize to Juju Smith and Chase Claypool. That's really hard for me to do because I cannot stand them. I said they were number 1 and number 2 when it came to the most overrated. Odell Beckham Jr. has cemented himself as the most overrated receiver in the NFL. It's up there with him and Juju Smith. But when you look at the Browns and Odell Beckham Jr., when he's played, the Browns are 14-14, right at 500. When Odell Beckham Jr. doesn't play, the Browns are 7-4. He's played 28 games with the Cleveland Browns. He has just 7 touchdowns. He's only had 2 games with 100 yards. He has 22 straight games without 100 receiving yards. I know you have Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Jarvis Landry, Kareem Hunt out of the backfield, but that makes no excuse for supposedly one of the best wide receivers in the NFL and supposedly one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL in Baker Mayfield, which, I mean, talking about overrated, he's near the top when it comes to quarterbacks. Odell Beckham Jr. needs a change of scenery ASAP because he's not going to be what he used to be in New York until he gets traded. The Cleveland Browns need to trade him. Like I just said, they are better off without him. The record states it. And it just fits them better. I mean, you could have guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones step up and people like that, younger guys who haven't really had their chance at times because Odell Beckham Jr. plays. But at the same time, Odell Beckham Jr., it seems like it gets hurt every single game. Wherever he gets traded to, he needs to, have one of those things that said, careful, really, really fragile wherever he goes to because he's always hurt every single week. And something very, very interesting about Odell Beckham Jr., he has 2 years on his contract after the season. If the Browns cut him, they have 0 dead cap money. That's something to look into. Very, very highly chance he could be getting cut in the offseason, which honestly, that might be the better option for the Browns because right now, heading into the season, lots of people thought they were Super Bowl contenders. They are not Super Bowl contenders right now. They're barely contenders in their own division, which is crazy to say right now. But to me, I look at the Browns and trading Odell Beckham Jr. Let's say if he does get traded, a couple of teams I like, one team in particular, I don't think it will happen, but I like it. That'd be the Raiders. I don't know their cap situation. And when you have Henry Ruggs as your number 1 receiver, that's not something to brag about. I know he's done better this year compared to last year, but you need to give Derek Carr more weapons. Darren Waller's obviously one of the best tight ends in the league. The Raiders, we've talked about the Bengals and Chargers surprise teams. The Raiders are, I believe they're 5-2 right now, really surprising people. If you get Odell Beckham Jr., maybe that's, your next step on maybe not winning, maybe not being Super Bowl contenders, but, helping yourself even more to possibly winning your division, a very tough AFC West. I like that one quite a bit. And a couple other teams and players I like. I feel like Xavier Howard, the corner from the Dolphins, obviously everybody's talking about that. He needs to go. He has 3 years on his contract. And something interesting with the Dolphins. The Dolphins have one win right now, and it looks like they might be in rebuild mode situation with Tua. He could be, dealt. We don't know what's going on with him. And the Dolphins do not own their first-round pick next season. The Dolphins own the 49ers' first-round pick next season. So once Garoppolo and Trey Lance gets fully healthy, once they start winning games, that's really going to hurt the Miami Dolphins. Let's say if the Dolphins trade Howard for a first-round pick to maybe a playoff contending team, obviously that's not going to make up for your, as of right now, a top 5 draft pick that you do not have, but at least you would have 2 first-round picks to maybe get yourself a new corner, or maybe trade those 2 first-round picks and trade up to get a new quarterback if you already shipped to it. It's very interesting with Howard. I feel like he needs to go. He's one of those players who are just stuck and he's not having his full potential because he's not in a Super Bowl contending team. When you have a top corner who has 3 years left on his deal, one of the top paid corners in the league, and he's not on a playoff team or not in a Super Bowl contending team, he's in one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. It's kind of like how the Bengals were bad for several years, and you had AJ Green and Geno Atkins, all of them. They don't really have their full potential, and they're not really talked about because they're on a bad losing team. And a couple other players I like right now a lot. This was just released within the past hour. I think Robert Tonyan was announced he's out for the season. Mike Gesicki and Dallas Goedert, how do you say it? The Dolphins tight end. Dolphins tight end, like I just said, Miami has 1 win. Goedert, the Eagles, they're a rebuilding team. Both these teams are uncertain with the quarterbacks right now. They are full rebuild, it seems like. And something else, both these teams love to acquire draft picks. Both these guys are in the final year of their rookie contracts. And with Robert Tonyan out for the season, the Packers do not have much money and cap space at all. But with Gesicki and Goedert, both on rookie contracts, they would be able to make it work. So either Mike Gesicki or Dallas Goedert to the Packers, to me, is a match made to heaven for Green Bay. You could even overpay him if you wanted to. Let's say you trade a second, which obviously that second would be towards the end because the Packers are one of the best teams in the league. Maybe a third or, maybe even something else. But you might even overpay to get Gesicki or Dallas Goedert because this is the last dance with Rodgers and Devontae Adams and all that when they're Super Bowl contenders right now. And like I said, when you have teams like these top teams, you can get one more player who can really help them to the next level. I would love to see Gesicki or Dallas Goedert to the Green Bay Packers. It makes so much sense. I would be surprised if it doesn't happen, honestly.
The Eagles are probably pissed because Ertz's stock would have went way up if found out that Green Bay needed him that bad. Damn, that sucks for Tonyan. Not that I think Tunion's an amazing player, any means are necessary, but I watched interviews with him, and he seems like he's a cool dude, so it sucks for him to get hurt like that. Another guy that could be talking about it, and we're talking about Odell and wide receiver landing spots, Allen Robinson possibly. Finally get him on the move. They kind of brought him back on. They franchise tagged him, I believe, and now you're in a situation where he definitely probably is going to walk. Do you want to go ahead and trade him and get something for him before he walks? The Bears, I don't think, should have too high of playoff contentions on the mind. They're going to have a tough second half of the year. It's showing that Justin Fields has a lot more development to do, and Allen Robinson is not helping in the development at all right now. So might as well think about trading him, and Vegas could be a spot he goes. Green Bay could be a spot probably not Green Bay. Chicago wouldn't trade their own division rival. But any of these teams that need a wide receiver, which is basically every team except for a handful of teams that could use wide receiver to caliber of Allen Robinson.
So if you're the Chargers, like I know the wide receiver group right now is good, but if you could pick between Odell Beckham Jr., who has 2 years remaining on his deal, or Allen Robinson, who's a free agent at the end of the year, who would you rather take over the Chargers?
I don't think the Chargers can afford either one, and that's why I'm so worried about what's going on with Mike Williams' contract, because he's on the last year of his deal as well. Obviously, he's not getting traded, but I don't know if they're going to be able to re-sign him because Keenan Allen has a max deal that he just got like a year and a half ago. Do you want to pay? How many teams in the league pay 2 wide receivers max money? Even the Buccaneers brought Chris Godwin back on a 1-year deal. They didn't sign him to a long deal with Mike Evans getting the big contract. So I don't think the Chargers will be in play for a wide receiver if they're going to make a move like that. And they've been in situations like this before, like in 2018 when they were 12-4, but right the same point at the trade deadline, and they didn't make any moves. So I don't know what's going to happen with Justin Herbert if it didn't happen for Philip Rivers, unfortunately. So, but if I had to pick between those two, it's really, 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 really close. But I think stylistically, Odell's the route running style is better for Herbert. Herbert's becoming more of a timing quarterback that can just step back and launch it when he needs to. And I feel like that fits Odell's style more than Allen Robinson's.
I know you were high. I think it was Ertz and possibly being traded to the Chargers. Like I just said with Gesicki and Gobert. I know they're in the final year of this contract. Would you want one of those guys? Or you think, like you said earlier, defense tackle? Like what do you think would be best for the Chargers to really help them go to the next step?
The Chargers should be looking towards free agency and towards maybe if there's a trade on the table for a running back too, like a true running back too. Some players that come into mind. I don't think Dallas would be down to let go of Tony Pollard, but would Tampa be willing to let go of Ronald Jones? Possibly. That could be a guy that could help the Chargers a lot down the stretch because Austin Eckler can't take this beating all year. He's already banged up, and we're halfway through the season, and he's taking a beating every single game, getting 25, 30 touches a game. We need someone that can just take a little bit off of that. And no offense to Joshua Kelly, Larry Roundtree, and Justin Jackson, those guys, they aren't quite ready to take on that responsibility of being like the true RB2 of this team. So I'd be interested to see us looking at one of the veteran guys that are free agents, like your Todd Gurley's, bring in Adrian Peterson. I don't care. Just someone that can take some hits off of Eckler's back on those like 2nd and 1 situations where you just want to get the first down and keep running the clock. Go ahead and throw that veteran out there to take that hit instead of Eckler. Or if they want to trade for someone like a Marlon Mack or a Ronald Jones or someone on a team that isn't getting very much action. And then, of course, defensive tackle is the biggest thing for us. We're about to get Justin Jones back, which is awesome, and he helps the team out a lot. But he's just one player, and the problem that we have is a lot larger than a one-player problem, especially not a player that is like an all-world defensive tackle. He's just decent. He's good. He's shown that he can help us out in the run stop, and he is going to help us out in the run stop. But that is going to kill us if we got to go into the playoffs giving up 200 yards a game rushing. We cannot do that.
And it's interesting because I know some people think, there's a chance Fletcher Cox could be traded. But like inside Philadelphia and the reporters and stuff like that, there's no chance he's going to be traded, and there's just too much money. Like that's another player like similar to Xavier Howard. If he was traded to a playoff contending team right now, but if you add them, maybe they're a sleeper for the Super Bowl. Like players like Fletcher Cox and Xavier Howard, I mean they could add so much to a team like the Chargers, like the Bengals, like the Raiders, who could cement themselves as crazy as it sounds, sleepers for the Super Bowl. I mean, we're in week 8 right now, and it's just crazy, with all these, games so far, teams that you do not really expect to do good are playing great. Teams who you think would be great have played like utter trash right now. And, there's really some intriguing matchups this week. In week 8, obviously there was the game last night between the Cardinals and the Packers. So the first couple games here, kind of seem to me kind of obvious. You have the Panthers taking on the Falcons, the Dolphins taking on the Bills, and the 49ers on the Bears. I would take the Panthers in that one, even though they look horrible right now, losing 4 straight. I'm take the Bills and the 49ers over the Bears in that one. What are your picks in those first 3?
I'm actually probably going to go Atlanta, playing in Atlanta. Atlanta's on not really a winning streak, but they're keeping pace, I guess, with that 500 record. Carolina's absolutely sliding and falling apart and benching their starting quarterback and having all kinds of struggles. So I'd probably stick with Atlanta there. And then Buffalo is probably going to wipe the floor with Miami. Coming off a bye week after a bad loss to Tennessee, Buffalo's going to come out firing. And they just spent the last 2 weeks salivating, trying to get back out there, getting ready for this Miami game. And then San Francisco-Chicago game, that one's a coin toss to me. That one's tough. I did my pick'ems. I don't even remember who I picked in this game. It's so tight because you don't know if the San Francisco defense is going to give Justin Fields the same fits that we saw the Tampa Bay defense give him. So I'm probably going to rock with San Francisco in that one.
These next 3 are really interesting because I feel like all 3 of these in a way are toss-ups. Obviously you have a big game in the AFC North. The Steelers and the Browns. The Browns, are injured like they always are. Mayfield is going to play, but honestly, I feel like I might be better off of, Case Keenum played because Case Keenum, to me, it seems like he's less likely to turn the ball over. You know what you want to get more out of Keenum, but Mayfield is more of a question mark because he might play good, but then he might play horrible. You're not really sure with him. I'm going to pick the Browns in this one. I feel like I'm going to be wrong on here, but I just do not really want to pick the Steelers in a big game in the AFC North. And then you have the Eagles and the Lions, which I think is this might be the Lions' first win. You know, the Eagles are one of the worst teams in the league, and the Lions have proven at times they are not as bad as what their record indicates. It took the longest field goal in NFL history to lose to one of the best teams in the league, and the Ravens. You also look, they played great against the Rams, who are one of the best teams in the NFC. I'm gonna have I guess it's an upset pick. I don't know the spread. I'll take the Lions in that one. And then the Titans and the Colts. The Colts have been improving the past couple of weeks, but the Titans are extremely underrated. You know, obviously they had that embarrassing loss to the Jets several weeks ago, but they beat the Bills, who the Bills are really, really good. The Titans humiliated the Chiefs. I mean, Derrick Henry had more passing touchdowns in that game than Patrick Mahomes did, but they are playing out of their minds right now. So those three, I'm going to take the Browns, Lions to the upset to get the first one of the year, and then I'll take the Titans over the Colts.
Yeah, and in similar situation that the Browns ran against the Broncos last week, even with Case Keenum in the lineup, the Browns were the better team than the Broncos in that game. And the Browns are having their struggles this year, but their struggles have been against really good teams for the most part. And I still trust this Cleveland team to take care of business against teams that they should beat, and they should beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think the Steelers offense is going to have enough to keep up with the Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb being back in the lineup. So give me the Browns, especially at home, in an afternoon game slate. And I'll take the Lions as well. And for the same reason that you're saying, they've been right there multiple times. The Eagles aren't as bad either as everyone expected to start the season, but still a bad team in the NFL this year, still a rebuilding team with a young quarterback that needs a ton of development still. I'm going to take the Lions. I think Jared Goff has a really good game against the Eagles defense, although I have liked what the Eagles defense has done for the most part this year, keeping them in some games they had no business even being close in. And then Tennessee, that's a tough road trip for them. Every time they play the Colts, they play them tough. And I want to go Indianapolis. There's something in my gut that tells me to take Indianapolis, but the Titans are just too hot. And the offense is clicking on all cylinders now. And we saw it in the last game against the Chiefs. The pass game really took over. And the week before that, it was the run game. If they can do it in both ways, and Julio, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry are healthy, and Ryan Tannehill is stepping back and putting the ball on target, they're going to be pretty unstoppable on the offensive side of the ball. So I think this game will be tight still, but I'm going to stick with Tennessee.
And then the next three, we have the Bengals against the Jets. I know Alex Robson wasn't here earlier. My thoughts and prayers are with him, being a Jets fan this week, because it's going to be a freaking mess for the Jets. I mean, Mike White at quarterback against this Bengals defense, who honestly, you can make a case they're top 10 defense right now. I mean, Joe Burrow, if he humiliated the Ravens defense, I cannot imagine what he's going to do against the Jets. I mean, Chase had over 200 yards against this Ravens defense, going up against Marlon Humphrey, who's one of the better corners in the league. Easy game here for the Bengals. Wouldn't be surprised if it's their biggest win margin since they played the Jets. I think it was 2013 where they won 49-9. Speaking of another game, it's going to be very similar to that. You have the Rams and the Texans. And this game, to me, it's going to be a blowout. Wouldn't be surprised if this is possibly the biggest blowout in the regular season. I feel like it has potential. The Rams, one of the best teams in the league. Look at the Houston Texans roster. Their roster is just horrible. Davis Mills is not really good at all. Should be blowout both those two games. This game is very interesting. I went back and forth between this one. I feel like this game and the Dallas and Minnesota game are the most intriguing matchups this week because you're looking at this, Chargers and Patriots game. Go back and look at last season. The Chargers got shut out by this Patriots team. It's going to be a close game. I feel like this Patriots team, they're not as bad as what the record indicates. I mean, they nearly beat the Cowboys and they nearly beat the Buccaneers. Should be a close one. I think the Chargers are going to be the edge, the Patriots here, in a very, very close game.
Yeah, the Chargers need it. I'm going Bengals and Rams. Same reasons. I don't think it's going to be too much of a thing, especially that Rams game. There are some teams in the league that play down to opponents, like the Browns sometimes, like the Cowboys sometimes. This year they've been very good, but sometimes the Vikings, obviously, every single week they play down. They're better than all the teams they've played this year, but they play down to them, it seems like, every single week. The Rams are not one of those teams. They're going to take care of business and put the hurt on the Texans. And then, like you said, this Patriots-Chargers team. This is a big game for the Chargers because we got to win this game while the Raiders are on a bye week to get back into first in the AFC West. Also, this is kind of a revenge game for Justin Herbert. The Patriots and Bill Belichick's scheme gave him the most fit so far in his career to a point where it was almost hard to watch. And we saw Baltimore shut down Herbert, but it was different. You could tell that the Chargers didn't have the energy and that Chargers didn't have the juice, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot in that Ravens game. Against the Patriots, their defense dominated our offense. Now, keep in mind, this is a completely new coaching staff and a completely new offensive scheme with Justin Herbert in there, and an improved Justin Herbert. He's playing better to start off this year than he was last year, too. And we played them, I think, around midseason also. So this is a big game for us. The fact that it's not in New England, we did play that game in New England, which is a tough environment to go into, especially the rookie quarterback. That's in LA. Not that I expect us to have crazy home field advantage, just to keep us from having to travel to Boston and go into Foxborough and deal with that is a big help for the Chargers. And I think that the Chargers can win this game and hopefully win it by 10, but we'll see. It could be a close game.
And, something else, you look at Bill Belichick's record, and when he goes up against rookie quarterbacks, like, he just gives them misfits the whole entire game. Herbert was an example last year. Zach Wilson was an example early on in the year this season. And, with the Chargers trying to get a, revenge type game, against the Patriots and trying to bounce back from that, Ravens lost a couple of weeks ago. It should be a good one. I'm going to go to the Chargers there as well. And the next couple of games here, the Jaguars against the Seahawks. I feel like if the Seahawks have Geno Smith as their starting quarterback for 17 games, they might win 3 games. Like, it is just crazy to say the huge difference between Russell Wilson, who's a top 5 quarterback in the league and has been, forever, then look at Geno Smith. There's a reason Geno Smith hasn't started the game in 4 years. And you look at Russell Wilson, it just proves even more. When we talk about MVP, Russell Wilson has not won an MVP. Most valuable player to his team. He's just kind of proven that right now that he should have had more MVP votes in the past because he's so valuable to the Seahawks team. But when he's out, this team is completely different. Seattle's been one of the better teams in the league the past 7-8 years. But the second Wilson goes down, this team looks lost. It looks like a JV team going against like a college team. Like, it is horrible with Geno Smith right now. And the Jaguars, this one's tough because I don't want to be crazy and pick the Jaguars because I feel like they're capable of winning. But this being in Seattle, it's interesting. I just do not trust Urban Meyer in this one. As much as I just downgraded Geno Smith so much, I think the Seahawks are going to win this one. And then we have Washington going up against Denver, 2 underachieving teams. Washington should be better than what they are, despite not having Ryan Fitzpatrick. Then you look at the Broncos, similar to what the Carolina Panthers were. They started off 3-0. They've lost 4 straight. If the Broncos lose this game, to me, I expect Vic Fangio to be fired during the bye week. That's 2 weeks from now, and a possible quarterback change to go back to Locke. This Broncos team should not be this bad. I've said on multiple occasions, they have some of the most underrated talent and offense in the NFL, but it doesn't mean jack squat until they can find their quarterback. If they had a good quarterback right now, if they had Deshaun Watson as their quarterback, I honestly believe they would be Super Bowl contenders right now, as crazy as that sounds. They just need to find their quarterback, but until they find it, they're not going to be able to compete in their division or even in the AFC. So I'm going to take – that one's tough. Washington's defense has not really been what people expected it to be. This is one of those games where just both teams aren't good. Neither team should end up winning. I guess Denver and I don't know if you call it the upset. And then the Buccaneers and the Saints. I'm going to take the Buccaneers in that one, despite the Saints being much better than people thought they'd be at this point. I feel like the Buccaneers would win that one pretty easily. So the Seahawks, Broncos, and Buccaneers in those 3.
Yeah, I think I have the same picks, but I'm going to go Seattle for similar reasons. Worried about a rookie quarterback and a young team with a first-year head coach who's struggling to walk into Seattle and take down the Seahawks in any fashion, even though Geno Smith is the quarterback. Geno Smith is the quarterback. He's hung tough against tough defenses. Pittsburgh and New Orleans back-to-back weeks. Yes, they didn't put up a ton of points, but he hung in those games and had a chance to win them at the end and just wasn't able to do it. I don't think this game is going to be as tight. I think Seattle can take care of business against Jacksonville, especially hosting them in Seattle. Denver and Washington, like you said, is more interesting. I'm going to rock with Denver also because I feel like across the board, not across the board at every single position, but I feel like that the strengths that Washington have are not going to outweigh the strengths that Denver has, even though Denver's been struggling. And then when you talk about the quarterback matchup, it's not really much to talk about there either. Not that Tyler Heineke's bad. If he has one of those games where it's like Tyler Heineke magic, which is starting to become a thing in the league now, maybe he got it from rubbing shoulders with Fitzmagic all offseason, then maybe Washington could pull off this victory. But I think Denver still is the better team, and it's just they're having struggles on offense, and they'll put it together hopefully and do enough to win this game. And then Tampa should beat New Orleans. Yes, New Orleans has been better than anyone expected, but there still is that like glooming loss to the Giants and that glooming ugly loss they had earlier in the year. So I think that New Orleans is a team that is playing up a little bit right now, a little bit of a hot streak against weaker opponents. And when you talk about the average teams in the league or the teams in the bubble of making the playoffs as 7 seeds in the NFC, they're right there in the mix for that. It's good to see for them too, because we didn't know what was going to happen when Drew Brees retired. They were just going to completely fall off a cliff and be a terrible team.
And it's interesting because at times their offense actually looks better compared to last season. I know lots of people were giving, the Saints crap for, having Winston as a starting quarterback and re-signing him. I feel like so far he's done a pretty decent job with, Sean Payton and everything. 4-2, is really good considering you have very low expectations. And Michael Thomas has yet to play a snap. So it's even more impressive that you're 4-2 and your best receiver hasn't played a snap so far. The final 2 games, the Cowboys and the Vikings. Look at the Vikings' record. They are way better than their record indicates. They have multiple one-possession losses. If it wasn't for the kick against the Cardinals, that would have been a win. There was, the fumble with Dalvin Cook against the Bengals. That's certainly debatable. And they could have won that game. Right there, their record changes a ton. They're much better than they show. Kirk Cousins, to me, is the deciding factor in this game. He's very inconsistent. Watching that Bengals game, he held the ball just way, way, way too long. There's other times, he holds the ball too long as well. If he can be consistent, I thought this could be a very good game. This being in Minnesota does have the edge, but the Cowboys, to me, are just one of the best complete teams in the NFL right now. I had the Cowboys in this one, but at the same time, there's talks about it's not a guarantee Prescott's going to be starting. If Prescott doesn't start, I want to pick the Vikings. If Prescott does start, I want to pick the Cowboys. But I feel like even if Prescott was 100%, this game's going to be closer than people think. If I had to pick a major upset of the week, I think it would be this one, the Vikings over the Cowboys. But I am going to stick to the Cowboys. I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings were able to pull off the upset. Then Monday Night Football, the Giants against the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 teams who should be doing better than they are right now. The Chiefs are under 500. That's just unacceptable. And then you look at the Giants. They just have so many injuries. But they had a very, very, very impressive win last week against Carolina. I know Carolina's in the losing streak, but you're only, giving up like 3 points or something like that to Carolina, who, has the tools and everything to put up, more than that. This one, I'm going to take the Chiefs, but the way the Chiefs are playing, even on their wins, they've played like crap. If it wasn't for a messed up, snap on a punt in the first game of the year, they would have lost to the Browns instead of coming back up behind and winning. In the win against the Philadelphia Eagles, they won 40. They put up 43 points, but they still gave up 30 points to the Eagles offense. That was so unacceptable. So I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. They should be able to pull it off, but the way we've seen the past couple of weeks, we don't know, especially only putting up 3 points against the Titans. So in those 2, I want to take the Cowboys and the Chiefs in those 2.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you again here. Similar reasons. I think that Dallas is just that. I think they're legit, man. And I think that they can take down this Vikings team, and it could be close, especially if Dak doesn't play. Now that changes everything, and I may even lean towards Minnesota because this is going to be a close game, and this is a game that this Cowboys team would lose in previous years. So it's interesting to watch it closely and see how they handle this game. It's not a game where they're coming in as the clear-cut favorites to go in and take care of business, pound the ball down their opponent's throats and win the game. This is a game where this Minnesota offense can put up points. They can put up points in a hurry, so they better watch out. But I'm taking Dallas. And then Kansas City, this is the Kansas City Chiefs' opportunity to have a get-right game. If they want to have a good right game, this is the week to do it. Not that I want to disrespect the Giants too much. Of course, they just came off of a win versus Carolina. They just don't have it. And then where they do have it and where the talent is on the injury report, which sucks for them every single year to have to deal with that. So I think the Chiefs are a way better team still, even with their struggles. So this is a perfect opportunity on prime time in front of the world to come in there and beat this team like 42-10 or just something crazy. And if they lose to the Giants, now we can really, because the teams they've lost to are good teams still. If they lose to the Giants, we can really reach back and hit that panic button and start talking about possibly Tom Brady collapsing another dynasty last year.
And it's crazy because let's say if the Chiefs were to lose to the Giants, but the Giants are super injured right now. If the Chiefs were to lose, it's something like they're taking it to me. I mean, they're out of the Super Bowl conversation, obviously. As of right now, if they lose, they're out of the playoff conversation because the 2 games under 500. Yeah. They're just trying to get 500 at this point. And when you're playing against the AFC West that has a 5-2 Raiders team, that has a very, very good Chargers team, that has a Broncos team who, if you have a quarterback, they're perfectly capable of upsetting you in your 2 games against them. I mean, something else, for example, I mean, look at the Raiders last season. The Raiders were started off 5-3 in a typical Raider fashion. They screwed it up at the end of the season 8-8. But the first meeting, they beat the Chiefs. In the second meeting, they nearly beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs were a billion times better last season than they are this year. And the Raiders, they look to be better this year than they were last year. So, looking at the Chiefs' schedule, despite them playing bad, even in their wins, and I know they've lost to good teams like the Titans and everything, but this AFC West is much, much, much harder than it was last season. So these games that might look easy in the past are going to be much harder for the Chiefs this year, it seems like.
Yeah, and teams have figured them out a little bit. They're running different defenses that take away the big play, and it's leading to Mahomes not just like settling for what the defense is giving him, and he's trying to do a little too much, and it's causing a lot of turnovers.
It should be really interesting with so many games this week. I just realized my hoodie looks more like the Senator Palpatine than it does actually Chewbacca.
But the shade coming over and everything.
But that really about does it. And we kind of talked about the Green Bay Packers. Giving the Cardinals the first loss. Are the Packers the best team in the NFL? Some top players who need to be traded, like Odell Beckham Jr., Xavier Howard, some other guys, and also some of our Week 8 picks for the NFL. So, Mike, you can kind of tell some of our listeners who can follow you on social media.
Yeah, man. The biggest thing for us is we started the Warzone Sports Network. We talked about it every time I come on as a guest here. And thank you for having me, by the way. I appreciate it every single time that we can get on here together and both of our schedules line up. But yeah, Warzone Sports Network YouTube channel is where you can find me. We have like 15 plus co-hosts, 15 plus shows every single week. And we're trying to kill it, man. We're trying to bring something unique and something special. And I'm kind of pissed that the Manning brothers stole our entire business model, but we'll beat them out, I'm sure.
100%. I'd be surprised if it doesn't happen. But this was a lot of fun. Definitely. I'll put the link in the bio so people can follow you. Make sure to follow me, the Sports Dude Hines Show, on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all next time on the Sports Dude Hines Show.
Happy Halloween.